Just a Concerned Citizen by Damos on AO3. Chapter 6. Busy Work. Hitoshi watched with amused eyes as Midoriya wandered into the cafe looking for all the world lost a puppy. The address he had sent the man had been intentionally difficult to find, not as a test, although he felt sure he would have passed if it had been. But as particularly of the location, the owner's quirk made it easy for him to keep out anyone he didn't want there, and he had made some efforts to keep the place low-key. As a result, it became quite the popular place among underground heroes, and presumably other type of people who didn't want to be overheard. It was a shame that the coffee was shit. But Hitoshi could make do. He smiled to himself. Funny how Midoriya could find the place, but not spot the pro-hero waiting for him there. That was kind of by design, but it was still amusing. Hitoshi leaned out of the booth he had nestled into and waved him over. Midoriya took a moment to notice, but when he did, he lowered his head and walked over faster, face red with embarrassment. "Sorry," he mumbled as he slid into the booth across from Hitoshi. "I didn't recognize you without the mask." The support item in question was around his neck, hidden underneath his capture weapon. The only thing concealing his identity at the moment was the hood pulled over his purple hair, although Midoriya seemed stunned enough just from seeing his mouth. "That's sort of the idea." Midoriya's eyes widened, and he nodded excitedly. "Of course, your costume is perfectly designed to let you go incognito at any moment notice. I bet the jacket is reversible, too." Oh, that was a good suggestion. Hitoshi wondered if that would mess with the armor that was already sewn between the layers of the fabric. The green-haired man flushed and looked down at his hands. Sorry, I get, carried away easily." Hitoshi was able to keep himself from chuckling, though he let a small smile creep into his face. He supposed the enthusiasm must also extend to busting crime rings. It was almost a shame that someone so likable was also too smart for their own good, and was inevitably going to get themselves into trouble. "It's not reversible, but it will be soon." As soon as he could be aside to find a support company to deal with it, anyways. "But we're not here to talk about my costume. We're here for your paperwork." Midoriya blinked in confusion as Hitoshi slid a thin folder in front of him. Brows furrowed as he opened it and started reading the first page. "This is for employment." Hitoshi snorted, only regretting it a little when Midoriya jumped in his seat and flushed red again. "I told you that you would be working this officially, didn't I? Finish that up, and you'll be the newest intern for the Great Masu Area Underground Heroics Agency. Money payable per case. Completed." Midoriya frowned, but he unhooked the pen from where it was clipped in the middle of the folder. "I don't do this for money." Well, based on the apartment, he didn't do much for money. "You still deserve compensation for the hours you're putting in, and it's not like it'll be a lot. I did say intern after all." Midoriya's face wrinkled up in a way that implied he didn't believe Hitoshi very much at all, but he started writing. Honestly, it was a pain that intern had been the best Hitoshi could do. Underground Heroics bought in analysis all the time, but usually it was analysis who had trained and gotten reputations at other, bigger agencies. Hiring independents wasn't unheard of, but Midoriya Izuku didn't have the resume for that. It would be totally different if he had linked to his identity as concerned citizen, but Hitoshi had gotten the impression that he was already towing the line of what Midoriya would do without running away as it was. He pulled another folder closer to him, pretending to reread the information inside while watching Midoriya over the top. There was still so much he didn't know about the man, and this would get a lot of his baseline questions answered. Maybe the big one, too. There was a lot of reasons someone would live the way Midoriya did, but Hitoshi had a strong hunch. One that got a lot more evidence for when Midoriya got to the third page and went dead still. Hitoshi knew what the page was. It was the one where you declared if you had a quirk that could be applicable to the job, and disclose whether or not you were licensed to use it. Pretty standard on most agency job applications these days. He was fully unsurprised when Midoriya marked the box that said he had no relevant quirk and flipped the next page, which didn't actually rule out anything, but again, evidence. Also, now that Midoriya was officially being hired, Hitoshi had a pretty valid excuse to go digging through the quirk registry and send off for background checks without anyone asking why. This may or may not have been one of the reasons he came up with this specific plan in the first place. Midoriya finished filing out the rest of the paperwork quickly, and by the time he was done, some of the vigilante had returned to his smile. His smile was a little thin, but he didn't flinch away when Hitoshi thumbed through the papers he had handed to make sure he had gotten everything. So we're waiting for someone else to show up before we talk case stuff. You want a drink or something? Midoriya looked slowly from the half-empty cup on the table to Hitoshi, face painting a clear picture of uncertainty. Actually, he was probably using all that crazy brain power he had to try and figure out what the sociably acceptable thing to do in the situation was. Instead of letting him stew on it, Hitoshi just pushed himself to his feet with a slight sigh. Never mind. You're getting a drink. You like hot chocolate? Midoriya started stuttering something, a lot of things, probably, but never got past the first syllable of any of them. He settled with a nod, and looked back down to his fingernails very intently. Hitoshi did not slicker, not even if he wanted to do a little bit, instead waving one hand vaguely at Midoriya and saying, "Keep an eye out on the booth, will you?" He ambled over the counter to order said hot chocolate, but he still kept Midoriya in the corner of his eye. That meant he was exactly aware when the person he was waiting for walked through the door behind him, because the man's eyes went as wide as dinner plates. Tokoyami appeared next to him and ordered a black coffee. Hitoshi kept his mouth shut because him not ordering it as black as the depth of my soul was an improvement over last time. And he also wasn't certain that Tokoyami even had the proper taste buds to determine that what he was ordering was bad. He let himself smirk as they walked back to the booth together, dropping the hot chocolate in front of Midoriya, who didn't even react. "Right," he said, pulling out the file that he had been pretending to read earlier. "Sugiyami, Midoriya. He's the analysis. Midoriya, Sugiyami. He's the one who found a decent amount of the info I'm about to hand you. And he's also working on this case." Midoriya sulked in an audible breath. "You're Sugiyami. You..." He physically cut himself off by clapping the hands over his mouth, then said through his fingers, "I'm a fan. I'm really glad to meet you." Tokoyami nodded his head and said, "Likewise." Then Tokoyami sat next to Midoriya in the booth, and Hitoshi could practically hear his brain implode. The obvious fanboying would be cute if it didn't make Hitoshi's thoughts go down a dark path of, for someone who idolizes heroes so much, it sure seems like you haven't had any of them actually look out for you. How do good people always slip through the cracks? Anyways, Hitoshi spread the files out on the table, facing his company, Midoriya's attention immediately snapping back at him once he started to explain. The weird thing about the case was that people had been found. Every couple of days, a missing person would turn up in an alley, disoriented, confused, and missing the memory of where they had been while they were gone. But with no injuries other than superficial cuts and bruises. He spoke lowly, leaning over the table as he, "The trouble is, we can't find anything that connects the victims. Quirk, gender, age, family, or social status. It's almost like these things are happening at random, but then we have no idea of the motive. No one has reported being asked for ransom money, and the fact that they're letting people go..." Tokoyami clicked his beak. "Whatever they're after, it seems like it's something specific. We just don't know what." Midoriya nodded in acknowledgement, but his eyes still flickered over the papers, lingering just a little longer on the profile of Ayo Nakama. Some part of Hitoshi hoped that he would just be able to figure out here and there, but Midoriya's expression pulled from thoughtful into a frown the longer he read. Eventually he said, "These are people they didn't want, right?" Particularly, Hitoshi pointed out at 3 of the papers, marked by the way he folded down the edges. These 2 were saved from being taken away by Tokoyami here and from 2 men, one with a gray jacket and one with a black one, both with their faces covered. The look Midoriya shot him was sharp. Hitoshi tapped on Neko's picture. "And I think you know the story here is much the same." Midoriya pulled the papers in question closer, but his eyebrows only knitted tighter. He was unable to find the connection, as Hitoshi had been. As for the rest, Hitoshi nodded to Tokoyami, who pulled a much thicker folder from the folds of his cloak and handed it to Midoriya, who blinked in surprise. "Missing people reports," he exclaimed. "We can't really sort through who's related to this case or not, but it may have a good information." Midoriya thumbed through that folder, too. No sudden revelation come from there, either, but when he looked up, it was with a light in his eyes, and a set to his jaw that made Hitoshi want to sit up a little straighter. "Thank you for trusting me with this, Mind Jack, Tokoyami. I promise I'm gonna solve this." The feeling at the table was electric. Hitoshi knew that Tokoyami felt it too, with the way his feathers rifled up. It was a bold statement, but right then, Hitoshi believed it. Class A group chat. Please do not change this. Pikachu 2. Guys, I miss them. Hardy man. Oh no, bro, did you get broken up with? My condolences. I like big beats. I don't think so. I would have gotten a crying phone call by now, I think. Pikachu 2. Not a breakup, but it might as well be. The concerned citizen stopped emailing me. I like big beats. Oh, LMAO. So, actually, you miss being lazy? Pikachu 2. I mean, yes, but not just that. Sexy or xenomorph. Actually, I haven't gotten anything from them in a little while either. I mean, the messages are usually spotty, but this is longer than usual. Hard handyman. I just checked. I haven't either. Sexy or xenomorph. Has anyone gotten a message? Say I. Pikachu 2. Oh no. Did they finally get caught? Frog. I haven't gotten any message from them recently. Though I thought we confirmed they weren't a criminal. Die. Who the fuck are you talking about? Spaced out. Oh, look who's here, smiley face. Pikachu 2. The concerned citizen? You know, the person who emails you and instantly solves the case that they are warning you about? Die. No, I don't know. Why the hell are all of you acting like I would? Sexy or xenophone? Wait, oh my god. Oh my god. Cats, have you never gotten an email from them? Die. How many times do I have to tell you to can it with the fucking nicknames? And no, I've never gotten an email from them. Still don't know what exactly you're fucking talking about. Sexy or xenomorph? It's just like Dinky said. It's this person who's been emailing us like crime tips. Except the tips are pretty much always enough to just straight up stop the crime. Like once they sent me enough evidence to completely arrest like every single member of a gang. Spaced out. Yeah, I think we've all gotten emails from them actually. Well, not recently. Kirishima is right. I haven't gotten any in over a week either. Die. What do you fucking mean, everyone? Plank. She means everyone. Well, in our class anyways. Ultimate flypaper. Everyone but you, it seems. Winky face. Also, I haven't gotten any messages in a few weeks either. Pikachu 2. Oh no, now it's getting spooky. Maybe something really did happen? Ingenium. If you were truly worried, I do believe Mind Jack was keeping tabs on them, and you yourself said that he had additional information. Perhaps we should ask him to do a wellness check? Pikachu 2. Oh, great idea. You pin him though, he'll just get mad at me. Ingenium, at Tired TM. People are concerned for the safety of someone you know about. It would be appreciated if you put their minds at ease. Tired TM. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Ida, your pins are the scariest shit on the earth, and you use that power for evil? Ingenium. Apologies. Tired TM. Whatever. Concerned citizen is fine. Just working on something big right now. Pikachu 2. Tell them we miss them. Sexier Xenomorph. Yeah! The first thing Izuku did after being officially hired was buy a corkboard and a map of the greater Musov area. Then he went back and got a bulk order of thumbtacks and got to work. It was frustrating, to say the least. Mind Jack had been right when he said there was no real pattern, and in fact, he highly suspected that the kidnappings weren't even localed to Masavu. His eyes were tired and dry, but he still read each missing persons report down in last detail. He pinned the people who had been found to be in the board and covered their pages with highlighter and red pen. Ayo Nakako, female, 22, quirk, poison dart frog, saved. Maran Ijiri, male, 49, quirk, dream control, found. Nagato Tsukuama, male, 16, quirk, sleep-induced, saved. Makari Tiruku, male, 28, quirk, pain touch, found. Matsuruki Kiriko, female, 35, quirk, sensory enhancement, found. Meringue Sukusumi, female, 55, quirk, paralysing breath, saved. Ido Chi, female, 34, quirk, hypnosis, found. Sawa Marsuna, male, 20, quirk, calming aurora, found. They were also different. All people were, of course, but it was very exotic group of people to try kidnap. The only possible link he could draw between them were their quirks. They could all potentially be used to incapacitate someone, but that was far too broad. Pretty much every quirk on Earth could be used to do that with the right application. So, he spent the days reading and rereading, pulling at his hair and feeling more and more stuck. He stared at the thick folder of missing persons for hours. All he wanted to do was help them, make sure they were okay. Mind Jack and Tokoyami and all of these people were depending on him, and he had nothing. And trying not to let himself get worked up over it didn't work out either. Not with the constant reminder that he wasn't helping. He couldn't help. He made a horrible mistake ever getting involved. No people were depending on him, and he was only wasting their time. From Mind Jack. Found someone else tonight. I'll get you the info tomorrow. The reminders weren't helping much either. For the first time since he had gotten the bookstore job, he called in sick. He felt sick. He wasn't able to make himself eat more than a handful of food at a time, and he couldn't fall asleep for more than a few hours. He must have looked pretty bad the first time Mind Jack came to his apartment, but this time, Izuku was sure he looked worse. When he opened his door to the pro hero and invited him in, Mind Jack's eyebrows shot up in alarm, and all Izuku could do was hang his head low. He was disappointed in him. Of course he was disappointed. Mind Jack had put his faith in him, and he hadn't been able to do anything. The hero stood awkwardly in the middle of his apartment, eyes fixed for a long moment on the corkboard, before they wandered back to Izuku. I hope I didn't wake you up. He tried, and then stopped and sighed. Or rather, I hope you've been sleeping. Izuku just cringed further into himself. Of course a hero would be upset with him for not taking care of himself too. Why wouldn't he be? Anything but a disappointment. I'm sorry, He raised a hand to wipe at his eyes. He managed to avoid crying in front of Mindjack the first time, but it seemed he wouldn't be so lucky today. Can't. I can't. I haven't figured anything out. He tried keeping his hardest to muffle sobs as the hero in front of him went very still. It had been nice while it lasted, but he was sure this was the end. He had seen how useless he was and wouldn't be allowed to contact a hero ever again. I think I put too much pressure on you. Or didn't explain myself well enough. Probably both. Mindjack's voice sounded a little strained. Then there was a sound of more movement, and Izuku found a hand on his shoulders. Midoriya, could you look at me, please? It was spoken softly, a request, not a command. But Izuku, still startled at the use of his name. Of course, the hero would know it, but he never said it out loud before. He took a shuddering breath and looked up. Mindjack had taken his mask off again and was staring at him with an expression that was hard to read. Serious, concerned, but not angry. Not in the way Izuku was used to, at least. The pro took a deep breath. When I asked for your help on this, that's what I meant. I didn't mean for you to try and solve this on your own. Izuku's resolve faltered, and his eyes fell back on the floor. Arms reflexed, rising to a grip at his chest as he tried not to sob again. But these people depend on me now. We don't even know what's happening to them. I couldn't. Midoriya. Mindjack's voice was firm. Sometimes the information isn't all there, and conclusions can't be drawn. And it sucks. But that's not on you. That's why I brought you in like I did, so I can share what information we got, until it can be solved. Izuku let out another shuddering sob, and the dam broke. How could he still trust me, when I couldn't even do this? Slowly became, he asked for my help, and he still wants it. What they shared wasn't exactly a hug. Izuku couldn't make his fingers let go of his own arms, even if he had the courage to try something like that. But he cried into Mindjack's shoulder, until he couldn't anymore. When he sniffled a final time and stepped away, the pro let out a breath and said, Feel better? Izuku nodded. Now that the crushing weight of dread had lessened, he was starting to feel embarrassed. Sorry. Don't be. The hero waved it off. It happens. More importantly, I need you to take care of yourself. Izuku blinked and looked up at Mindjack in confusion. And Mindjack blinked back, confused that he was confused. I get that there's potentially people's lives at stake here, but that includes yours too. Don't work yourself to death over this. Mindjack's eyebrows only went higher as Izuku stared at him. Shit. I'm bad at comforting people. Look, you're not responsible for anyone's life but yours. Okay? But... No buts. The pro-hero raised one hand. If anyone in this case gets hurt, that's on the villains, not on you. And we're going to stop them, but that's harder to do when you're too stressed to think. Alright? Izuku wasn't quite sure he believed all that, but it sounded nice enough, and he didn't want to make Mindjack worry more than he already had. So he nodded, and the hero seemed to relax. Okay, Mindjack said, gesturing one hand at where a folder had been placed on the counter. That's the new info, but I'm pretty confident it's not case-breaking, so don't freak out over it. I have to go settle some stuff at the police station. You... make sure to look after yourself. He hesitated. Consider that's an order from a pro. Izuku managed a weak smile at that. I'll try. And that was enough For a while at least. Izuku managed to get back to his regular routine, though the hours he spent at night were mostly spent looking at one case specifically. The chat room he had seen the message in hadn't been active since, and the message itself had been already wiped, a dead end, only without any other leads. Izuku wasn't willing to let it one stay. He found the website he found the link on, a forum where people would post a prize and a few code words for what they wanted. It was usually drugs, but not always. And maybe the kidnappers were still operating on this site. Maybe they weren't, but he was going to dig until he knew for sure. And Midoriya had always been about as safe as someone with a laptop working from home could feasibly be. But in a world with technology quirks, that didn't necessarily mean much. Okay, this is a very interesting chapter. So Izuku is finally employed and is actually going to get paid something for his work. We love that. Izuku got to meet Tokoyami, that's something. That list of names with people, oh my freaking god. Like, actually, I was struggling. 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 So, I'm sorry if I butchered the names. Very, very sorry. My bad. I'm really bad at reading. English isn't my first language. But, yeah, it was very interesting. I very much enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed this chapter. We are getting some, stuff. We love that, Class 1A actually cares about Concerned Citizen, or just like, oh no, what happened to him? I love that. I love that. I always love Quirkless Izuku fics. They're always super, super interesting and stuff like that. So I always love sitting and reading fics like that. Obviously, this isn't my first read, but I am so happy rereading it. It has been a while since I read it first. So it's like a new read for me, but I know what's gonna happen, so not necessarily. It's a weird experience. You just have to experience a second read to understand. Those who know. Those who don't, well, you don't. Sorry this video was a bit late. I got a little sidetracked, and technically speaking, I was supposed to record this yesterday, but I didn't record it yesterday, and I was supposed to record it today, and then I didn't record it today, and then I have like 6 other videos I'm supposed to record today, and I haven't recorded anything today. Yeah. I'm getting into that bad habit right now. But yeah, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.